Remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Okay, there were no votes taken in executive session. I have some correspondence before our meeting. And basically, the correspondence indicates that the North Providence High School is a recipient of $50,000 from a trust. And the school committee will be voting on this. And we have to sign, obviously, a release to the trustee of the trust. And once we vote on this, our legal counsel will review the trust, and that will be forthcoming to the high school. And of course, the superintendent will be involved in that. Any questions, anybody? Okay, I need a motion to accept the money, and also I have to sign a release, so I need a motion on that, please. So move.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Angiosi, who seconded? Rod Silva. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so thank you very much.
I'm going to call Glenn Williams up.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right, ready? Okay, so good evening, everyone. Really nice to see such a large crowd here tonight. We have some wonderful recognitions this evening. So we'd like to start by inviting Mr. Williams up, our athletic director at North Providence High School. Mrs. McGill is joining Mr. Williams.
Good evening. With me tonight is our representative from administration, Ms. McGill. So welcome, Ms. McGill. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here tonight to recognize our student athletes for their accomplishments while attending North Providence High School. We are proud of the hard work and dedication these student athletes have made to their sport while maintaining academic eligibility. Athletes, on behalf of the school committee, superintendent, administration, and the athletic department, congratulations on your accomplishments. Athletes, please come to the front of the room as your name is called and receive your certificate of accomplishment. First, I'd like to recognize our senior, Aria Amico. Here tonight, I'll ask her coach, Coach Juf, and Coach Raynon to come up to the front as well. Aria is a 3-year varsity soccer player for North Providence High School, playing midfield and forward. During this time, she has earned the recognition of First Team All-Division in all 3 years. In addition, the Rhode Island Coaches Association recognized Aria as an all-state selection for Division II. Aria has been offered a scholarship to Stonehill College in Eastern Massachusetts, where she'll be focusing on her skills as a goalkeeper based on her performance playing for the Bayside FC Premier Club out of East Providence. Congratulations, Aria. Thank you, hon. Next, we recognize our 2 underclassmen, Ben Meyer and Christopher Matarisi. Also with me tonight will be with Coach Torty, so please, Coach Torty, please come up. Ben and Chris are members of the Cougar wrestling team and have worked diligently to accomplish a goal that every athlete sets out at the beginning of their season. By working hard and putting in the required dedication that wrestling requires, they have accomplished their goals this past season, earning themselves an individual state championship. Winning the junior varsity state championship at 113 pounds, Ben Meyer, who apparently isn't here tonight, and with us is our freshman state championship winner at 145 pounds, Christopher Matarisi. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for recognizing these athletes tonight, and I'd like to congratulate all of our athletes for their hard work and dedication to our school and community. Thank you.
We do have a few additional athletic accomplishments we'd like to mention tonight. I'd like to offer congratulations to the Johnston North Providence Co-op hockey team. They were awarded the Hockey Officials Association Annual Sportsmanship Award. The student athletes and coaches have distinguished themselves through demonstrated acts of sportsmanship and ethical behavior by respecting the competitions, student athletes, and officials. The district is very proud of Coach David Centracchio and Coach Stephen Morrison for their leadership as representatives of North Providence High School and the influence they have on our student athletes. We just received notice of this award, so we will be officially honoring them at our April school committee meeting, but we wanted to make sure that we shared that with everyone, including the committee, at this time. So they will be officially recognized at the April meeting.
Okay. Our next awards are the National Cyber Defense Competition. The teams are the Cybercats and the team Anon. From the Cybercats team, they finished second place, which is a remarkable achievement, I understand. The first recipient is Ken Jeffrey. Okay, the next recipient is Rachel DeAngelis. Is Kyle Giamacco. The next individual is Kaylee Riccitelli.
Congratulations.
Is Ryan Vukas. Hey, wow, a duel. I also like to mention Ms. Barbara Da Silva is the mentor, and she's worked very hard with this. Barbara, do you want to say a few words? Did you want to say anything? No?
She's going to stand there and look lovely with
Okay.
it.
We have,
Yes.
we do have the National Guard mentor.
Yes, I'm going to mention it. Yeah, okay. And let's see, the next team is the Anon team, and they finished third. And the first person is Anna Agama, I don't know. That's a tough one. Abenya. Abenya, I think it is. Abenya. I got it.
Say that right? I'm just glad you're reading the names this time. No,
Not here. Okay, after all that, all right.
Thomas Niosi.
Next one is Thomas Niosi. Next person is Noah Riley. Next is Stephen Shakura. Henry Saravo. Next is Leanne Train. We had volunteer monitors from the National Guard who worked very hard with these young people, Mr. Paul Payan and Mr. Stephen Cornell.
I swivel.
Get out of the spot. I gotta get it back in there. No, stay where you were.
Superintendent is going to have a comment.
So I would certainly like to thank Mrs. De Silva and the mentors from the Rhode Island National Guard. Just to share a little bit about the Cyber Patriots. Cyber Patriots is the National Youth Cyber Education Program that was created by the Air Force Association to inspire K-12 students toward careers in cybersecurity or other science, technology, engineering, and mathematics disciplines, which are critical to our nation's future. At the center of Cyber Patriots is the National Youth Cyber Defense Competition. The competition puts teams of high school and middle school students in the position of newly hired IT professionals tasked with managing the network of a small company. In the rounds of competition, teams are given a set of virtual images that represent operating systems and are tasked with finding cybersecurity vulnerabilities within the images and hardening the system while maintaining critical services. So as you saw, Richie has 2 Cyber Patriot teams, which we just recognized, Anon and the Cyber Cats. So each of these competitions is 6 hours long. After 3 competitions, both teams scored in the top 50% of all middle schools in the United States. Which then qualified them for the national semifinals. Cybercats finished 2nd in Rhode Island and Anon finished 3rd in Rhode Island. So this is quite an accomplishment. Certainly we're very, very proud of our students, and we thank our adults who spend so much time mentoring and guiding our students. I certainly know that there are going to be many, many jobs in this area, so boys and girls, it's a great opportunity for you to get to know exactly what those jobs will entail, and you're a lot further ahead than most students your age. So thank you again for the parents who are here to recognize your children, and certainly Mrs. De Silva and our two representatives from the National Guard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to take about a 3-minute recess, and those students and parents that want to leave, you may leave anytime.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Right. Just keep telling me that, Billy. Okay.
Okay, we'll resume our meeting.
Okay, you want me to go on to Jerry Rubino?
Yeah, I'm just going to mention, is he here, Jerry?
Yep,
Yeah,
Jerry's back
okay.
there.
We have some recognition for Jerry Rubino. The superintendent will mention a couple of things about Jerry.
Okay, and Mr. Rubino happens to be here tonight, so we'd like to offer congratulations to Jerry Rubino. He was recognized by his peers as the Division III Coach of the Year in girls basketball. So the Cougars under head coach Rubino won their second consecutive Division III North Championship and as a team demonstrated their ability to improve on their performance. Congratulations to Jerry. Okay, one more recognition. I want to recognize our principal of the high school, Joe Goho. Joe Goho was selected as the recipient of the 2018 Rhode Island Interscholastic League Administrator of the Year. Joe has served for several years on the Rhode Island Interscholastic League board, certainly dedicates a tremendous amount of time and energy and expertise to this board. So we congratulate Joe. There will be a luncheon celebrating his accomplishment and the other awards for Rhode Island Interscholastic League on April 5th, if the school committee so desires to join me for that luncheon. So congratulations to Mr. Goho.
Okay. All right. Next matter on the committee is the Rhode Island Department of Health.
Yes, okay, so I think they're here. Yep, they're here. Okay, so I would like to welcome officials from the Rhode Island Department of Health. They have joined us here this evening. They're here to share some highlights from the cancer analysis that was conducted, and also to answer any questions that the school committee or public may have. I believe Mr. Joseph Wendelkin will be coming up. He is our public information officer for the Department of Health, and he has a whole team with him tonight who are here with us in North Providence, so we certainly thank you for your time and for joining us tonight. So I'd like to invite the members of the Department of Health up to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Ana Novaes. I'm the Executive Director of the Health Department, so I hope you remember me. I was here with you all in July last summer when we were having the conversations. So while I appreciate Joseph, our Public Information Officer, coming here with us, there's also a whole team, as you mentioned, and I would like to recognize them. We have leadership from the Division of Community Health and Equity. That's where the cancer program exists. There's Carol Hall-Walker, Nancy Sutton, C. Kelly Smith, and Junie O. And we have also leadership from the Division of Environmental Health in the presence of Sima Dixie and Barbara Moran. So this is really, we take the issue seriously. We were here, we discussed the issue, we heard the concerns of the parents, of the teachers that were here, and we followed through, both us and the school. We did this together, and so we wanted to come back today and just report what we found overall in general, and answer any questions you may have. So Joseph, I hope you remember, you saw him on TV. He was interviewed, and he's our PIO, so he will answer a few more detailed questions because he's been doing it with the media. But what I really wanted to share in general, it's first our thanks for the partnership with the school department. The Providence School Department will have never been able to do it without your partnership and without the collaboration. So that's appreciated. And I hope that all the teachers and the folks that were concerned realize that we work together in trying to analyze and respond to what was happening. So cancer is scary. Cancer is scary. It doesn't matter when it happens, how it happens, it's always scary. And we always want to find answers, and very concrete answers. And we don't necessarily are at ease with the answers that we find. I did share with you when I was here last time how I had found myself many, many years ago in that exact same situations that your teachers were. So I hear them and I understand that. And I was as scared as they were probably. I never forgot, I was 40 years old, a long time ago. It was my first mammogram. And I went and I was called back because something was wrong. And I had an ultrasound. And I was called back again because something was wrong. And I needed to do a needle biopsy. And then I was called back because I had found some cancer cells on it. And the reason why it was that scary is because at that same time there were a whole lot of other colleagues of mine with same diagnosis of cancer. So we were all freaked out. And we did the same thing that the teachers did. We asked for an analysis, for an investigation, what's going on? Is that something wrong with the building? Because just being female, being older, being overweight, normal risk factors for cancer, that is not what you want to hear, or that is not what you are ready to hear. So we did the analysis, we called people, we looked at the data, and we found that indeed it was just a freaky coincidence, that there was no association in those cancers. And I tell you that story because that is what we found when we looked at the data in North Providence. So we looked at the data, we looked at national data, so we have access to a national database of cancers. We looked at the data of our own Rhode Island registry for cancers, and we look at the data that way to try to assess and come up with ranges. What are the normal expected ranges of cancers that are found in a certain age, in a certain group, by comparing nationally and local. And then we had the data that you gave us of all of the teachers in the school and all of the retirees, active retirees in the school, and it was 800 and something. Joseph will have those specific numbers. And we compared and we put them on the database and to see, looking at those specific individuals, looking for diagnosis of cancer, the type of cancers that we're looking for, and coming with a determination, is it within range when we looked at the national trend and the data, or is it set different in North Providence? And it was, in fact, the numbers were within the range, what's expected to be found within those populations. We divided the data by male and female, because there's a large number of females as it relates to males, but because also breast cancer is most common in females. But still, the range was, the findings were within the expected range. That being said, we are not necessarily done. On the sense that we want to continue to monitor, because we hear that there are still folks who are concerned, and we want to be respectful of that concern, because as I said, it's a scary diagnosis. And so our intention is continue to look at the data annually, and if there's anything that is out of normal, as we continue to look at that, we will come back for a more in-depth analysis. So that's what we found. I think it's good news. We want to make sure that there is nothing harming our teachers, there is nothing harming our population, that our schools are safe place for people to work, to be at, for our children to learn, and we are happy to share that information with you. So thank you.
I'd like to thank you on behalf of the North Providence School Committee. It appears that you've done a very thorough job. Cancer obviously is a very scary word. I've dealt with it 3 times in my own family, so we thank you. We have to make sure the schools are safe for children, teachers, and everyone, and certainly it's really gratifying to hear that you're doing maybe future tests. You're not going to let it go, and keep us posted.
Absolutely.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. Any questions? He's our information officer. If there was any specific questions about the specific number I said, around 800, he knows exactly 800 and what, that kind of thing.
I would just like to echo what the chairman said. I've had the pleasure of speaking with Joseph and his team on several occasions, and I certainly appreciate how attentive your department and certainly your team has been to North Providence School Department, the respect that you've shown to our teachers and people who have been concerned about the health, and certainly how thorough your whole department is and clear with us, and the communication has been outstanding. So we truly appreciate the partnership as well.
Well, thank you. We see it as our job to be responsive. Yes, sir.
Hi, folks. My name is Dr. Robert Weiss. For 19 years, I taught and was a principal in North Providence. My wife asked me to come tonight because she is one of the teachers that were involved in this. She taught at both schools, and the question we had when you were unable to come back to recharge, she worked in the rooms that needed to be retested at the time. Um, the question she asked me was, when she heard the number, did you also take into, and it's just for clarification, did you take into consideration the number of teachers that have died over that period of time that had cancer?
So we looked at the number of teachers in two ways, and Joseph will correct me if I say this wrong for sure. So for the number of, for the teachers who passed away before 2001, because our registry was not capturing the data, we didn't look at that information. But we looked at for everyone who died after 2001, which is in our database, we did analyze that. We have that information and they were captured in our analysis. Want to say it in a different way? Probably.
So just to quickly clarify, so the information that we got was from the retirement system, and the North Providence School Department retirement system. The electronic system was built during 2001. So the information that we have was for active retirees from 2001 on. So if someone was a part of the system and unfortunately passed away before 2001, they were not part of the analysis. However, if someone was a part of the system after 2001 and they did pass away, we were able to look at those numbers, and those numbers were also within the expected range of the number of cancers that we would have anticipated seeing.
Okay, were those numbers, the reason now you got me thinking, because I lost two very fine educators and friends before 2001, all right, and they were young, very young women. So the question then holds for statistically, are we talking within the range you're talking about, a minute number of total number that would not affect if we added 10 or 12 more people? Or you know what I'm asking, all right? The people that died before 2001, you've kind of dismissed. And I'm not saying you dismissed, statistically, because they didn't have the backup from the state retirement, all right? And these people did die before 2001. So, no, if you added basically the 10 people that I know, the two close folks were friends, right? But there were other teachers you had, if you had added those, would it make a difference, all right? And I don't know what the number, you're talking 800, I'm not sure that's what I'm asking.
So I understand your question, and from a statistical perspective, if you were to add the 10 or 12 or whatever it is, it's going to increase both your universe, the numerator, and also the number of cases that you're looking. So it will not change statistically that range that we're talking about, because it's a range that we're talking about. So you add a larger number at the base and another number on that specific number of cases.
All right, one more question, and then I'll go quietly into the night, young fella, right?
No, absolutely.
All right.
Take your time, sir.
The question that probably started a lot of this when you came in was the failure to retest rooms. Are you now on a schedule to test the rooms when you need to, retest the rooms, and have the information of the school committee, have the information on hand? Because I know when that question was asked, there was a lot of blank looks on these fine people that I know most of them, all right?
Yes.
So I just want to know now that the procedures have been covered so that the rest of the generations, all right? Because unfortunately, when I walked in here tonight, I have a tendency to look up, and there are tiles in here that should be replaced, all right? It's a question of, I just want to make sure procedures now are in place, because they didn't seem to be in place when this thing all started. I know, I just saw that when I came in the back. You know, all right, yeah. But it's just a case of, you know me, I've been around too long and I ask all the little questions, you know that. So the question, no, so as long as the procedure's in place, if you find something, there is a procedure to retest, all right? So that future generations, we don't have to go through the kids or the teachers that are working.
She's going to
Certainly. And our Director of Facilities is also here right now. And yes, all of the required environmental testing that should be taking place is taking place. So we have current reports on all of our radon testing, asbestos, so on and so forth, following all the regs and requirements. You mentioned the ceiling tiles, so we're well aware and we're very eager to replace those as well. So as Mrs. Picard said, as soon as our roof is replaced, we will be able to replace those ceiling tiles and not have them damaged as soon as
I have
the
a
rain.
bias. I speak of experience of 8 years being the principal of Greystone School, and sometimes they weren't replaced in a timely manner. We also went through radon testing, so I know what, unless you've changed procedures on that, I know what we're doing on those things now. So I asked the questions, not to bag it, just to make sure that everything that was talked about in that first meeting has been corrected. Sure. Because now I have to go home and explain it to a young lady that's most of you know.
Sure,
So,
absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
So I hope you have a good you can explain it well, but I wanted just to add something. When we talk about environmental exposures and sources of environmental exposures for cancer, on the radon asbestos, you're talking mostly likely about lung cancer, and I wanted to let you know that when we looked at the data, we found that at least one case, but less than 5, and we say this way because when you have less than 5, you cannot really give an exact number, and that's below the expected range. So even from that perspective, I wanted you to know that we did look at that, and that was the result that we found.
Hey, thank you very much. Bob, I want to thank you for coming tonight. Nice to see you again. Thank you for coming. Yep.
Hi, I'm Johnny Guzman. I have 2 kids in school. My daughter Camila goes to school with Gina Picard, 2nd grade. I was just reading the report. I was interested in the numbers. Seems that the range of women was quite big, 36 to 63, right? And we were 60 women were diagnosed with cancer, so it's really high in the range. So I was surprised how big the range was. Is this a current range, or has it changed? Say, 10 years ago, was it the same range?
So the range for females was larger than males because when we calculate that expected range, it's based on the population. So if there are more females in the total population, which there were, than males, then we would anticipate seeing a higher count of cancer cases among females. In terms of how that's changed over time, so we looked at the data going back about 30 years, so I'm not sure exactly, so it...
Just the range seems really, really wide compared to the men's range.
Yeah, so there were...
So let's see, just to be clear, it was 36 to 60 is the women's range, and the men's range is what, 19 to 26?
Yes. Yes, that's correct. And so for the total number of teachers, there were about, or faculty members, there were about 3 females for every 1 male. So that's why the range is about 3 times as large for females compared to males.
All right, and I had a few other questions that's related to this. So the other question I had was, maybe I should speak to the microphone so we can hear. is what if there were 64 women diagnosed with cancer? What would happen? Just slightly above 63.
What will happen in terms of what, the investigation?
Right, the investigation. So
We'll
we're right below.
so you were on the high end of the normal range. So it is important to know that it was the normal range. So if we were to go beyond the normal range, we will probably be expanding our investigation and looking at how much farther away we could go and that kind of thing. So it will be a next phase on the investigation. We didn't go there because we don't need to go there. Before you go, is there anything different that you'd like me to say, Nancy or Carol? Okay. Just making sure that I wasn't skipping anything from a
I
program
guess
perspective.
the reason I ask, what if there was a misdiagnosis or so on, and say 4 other people, like the gentleman asked, were diagnosed with cancer? So do you take that into account?
So remember, it's a range. It's not just the number of isolated cases. So one extra case will not necessarily change the range, because you need to look at the number of cases within your population that you are comparing to. Right. So one extra case is not going to make the range change.
And one other thing I'll add too is we didn't look just at the total number, but at the types of cancers. And the reason why the number for females was a bit on the higher side were because of the count of breast cancer cases. And as we outlined in the memo that we circulated, we were looking both at the number of cases and then to see if any of those cancers were associated with traditional carcinogens, which breast cancer is not, which is not to say that we're going to continue to keep looking at these numbers and to track all this information, but that was just one other consideration we made, was the type of cancer.
One last question. Yes, sure. It seems like the 800 people that you tested were from all the different schools, correct? Mm-hmm. However, radon and other carcinogens were found in specific schools. So did you do an analysis for like people from specific schools? Because the rates presumably might be higher.
So as we said, when we looked at the data, we found at least 1 case of lung cancer and less than 5, which are the type of cancers that are associated with environmental exposures on the whole population. And that was way below the expected range. I also wanted, so we didn't warrant a more thorough investigation. I also wanted to mention something else. Nationally, when you look at the trends in breast cancer, and because you mentioned the high number, right. The other thing that we see is that, for example, folks, as I said, women are more prone to breast cancer than men. You also have higher educated women of higher income, and most of the time it's because with higher education, higher income, you have access to insurance, you have access to health services, you are screened, so we find more cancers. So it will be normal, on a sense, to expect that normal range being in the high end too, because that is also the population that we're talking about, a higher educated population with high income, with incomes that are higher, with access to health services, being screened and so forth. So I just wanted to mention that too.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
Okay, thank you very much.
I just want to thank the health department again, because you've answered some great questions that we as a committee could never answer. And I don't think a day goes by, and I'm in food service, so I meet people every day, that like an accusatory look isn't looked at the school committee for doing something wrong. So I appreciate that you clarified this. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be still questions, but I'm glad you clarified it, because I think I could have talked to them at the end of the year, at the end of my life, and I don't think I would have convinced people. So I appreciate it, and thank you.
Thank you, and anytime you need us, we are ready to talk to you. Yes.
In your numbers, I'm sorry. Oh, Chrissy Amato, sorry. In your numbers, does that just include teachers? Because I was a student and I graduated from here and I was diagnosed last year with breast cancer.
So we just include the teachers. The reason why we did not include students, because when you look at the kind of cancer that will be from an environmental exposure, usually you need a longer exposure time, and so looking at the teachers or the staff that are employed and spend more time in here, we'll find if there was anything abnormal, you would expect to find it first in that population. So because we found within normal range for the teachers and employees who spend more time here, we didn't find it necessary to expand at this time to go over the students. Now, if that number was to change, because I wanted to reiterate and repeat that we are going to continue to look at on an annual basis to do this kind of analysis, if there was to change and the range will become abnormal, we will go and expand, and that will include students, if that was the case.
I attended here after the fire.
Yeah.
When all that went
Yeah.
on.
But that was the reason.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So if there aren't any other questions, I again just want to thank you very much for joining us. I also wanted to mention that part of the restructuring of our district wellness committee is to include the Tools for Schools program. So that we've been following those suggested practices, procedures, and we're in the process of really taking a close assessment of all of our schools. So that's been a very helpful tool for us. So we are doing our part as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and I applaud you to doing the Tools for Schools. It's one of our programs, and we see it as a tool and a resource for the community. So well done to you. And again, call on us anytime. I want to thank Joseph. It's always good to have someone to correct you when you say wrong. That's why a good backup team is important, but also the more important team back there sitting at the table. Thank you for all of the work that you've done. So thank you.
Okay, next item.
Next item, be it resolved that at the recommendation of the superintendent, the North Providence School Committee consider and vote to approve the monthly financial report as submitted.
So moved.
Motion by Gina Picard, seconded by Rana Yanetta. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, so voted. Next item.
Be it resolved that at the recommendation of the superintendent, the North Providence School Committee consider and vote to approve the homeschool requests as submitted.
Motion by Rana Yanetta, seconded by, who's second? Mr. Andriozzi. Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, ayes have it, so voted. Next item.
Be it resolved that at the recommendation of the superintendent, the North Providence School Committee consider and vote to approve the field trip requests as submitted.
Second.
Motion by Steve? Okay. Second by Steve. Mr. Palmieri? Right?
Aye.
All right. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have, so voted.
Okay. Be it resolved that at the recommendation of the superintendent, the North Providence School Committee consider and vote to approve the termination as submitted.
Motion. Motion by Steve Andriozzi, seconded by, I don't know who seconded it. Ron Iannetta. You know what, can we start just putting our hand up when you make a motion, because it's very difficult on this side to tell who made the motion. Thank you very much. Next item.
So be it resolved that at the recommendation of the superintendent, the North Providence School Committee consider and vote to approve the retirement/resignations as submitted.
Yeah, I said all those in favor.
Why, they didn't say it.
Oh. Oh. All right. We'll vote again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, so voted. Next item.
I'm going to repeat that item. Be it resolved that at the recommendation of the superintendent, the North Providence School Committee consider and vote to approve the retirement/resignation as submitted.
Second.
Thank you very much, Steve. Mr. Angiozzi, and seconded by Mrs. Picard. Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so voted.
Next item, be it resolved that at the recommendation of the superintendent, the North Providence School Committee consider and vote to approve the leaves of absence as submitted.
Mr. De Silva makes a motion.
Mr. De Silva, thank you very much. Seconded by Ron Iannetta. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so voted. Next item.
Be it resolved that at the recommendation of the superintendent, the North Providence School Committee consider and vote to approve the appointments as submitted.
Mr. De Silva makes a motion.
Mr. De Silva makes the motion, seconded by Mr. Iannetta. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, so voted. Okay, new business. Yeah, got it. Okay. Wait a minute. Okay. Okay, what we're looking at here is a resolution that many other school committees have passed pertaining to school construction, the general obligation referendum. This is the approval of the issuance of $250 million in general obligation bonds to support the renovation of existing schools and construction of new schools. And the rest of it is mandatory. We need a motion.
Mr. De Silva makes a motion.
And Mr. De Silva and Mr. Angiozzi, second. Thank you very much. Discussion. All
Aye.
opposed? Ayes have it, so voted. Okay, Mr. Palmieri.
I have a concern about the abuse that's being taken with the 2-hour delay on snowstorms. My issue I have is, for 7 years when Deborah Gist was the commissioner, there wasn't an option of a 2-hour delay. There was a 1-hour delay or they closed the school. 2-hour delays are atrocious. Number one, they deny the child 2 hours of instructional time that's not made up. Secondly, being a school committee member, I looked at 2 reasons why I do this. One is because I want to help with the education of the child. 2, it's a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayer. We're getting 2 hours that those children are not getting any instruction from 600 employees that we're paying. So I don't have a problem paying them. They earn every penny that they work for, they deserve. But I just think that the 2 hours is shortcoming these kids. They go to school 180 days. I don't want to lose 1 minute of the time that they have to go. So those 2 reasons alone, well, excuse me, last year we sent a letter to the commissioner about doing away with the 2-hour delay statewide. Well, I've never heard back from him, and I don't think he's ever contacted our committee, but I did hear him say, we're going to leave it. Yeah, that's good. Well, anyway, he didn't respond to me, so I'm not going to respond to him right now, but here's what we're going to do. He said on TV that it was going to leave it up to the districts. It was up to them. So I would like to make a motion that this district, possibly be the first, will deny a 2-hour delay. So it's 1 hour or close the school for safety. Because I'll just give you a couple of examples. 2 snowstorms ago, 22 districts had a 2-hour delay. Last time, Providence canceled school, had a 2-hour delay at 2:30 in the afternoon. The next day was when they had a 2-hour delay. They had no idea they would need a 2-hour delay. It's abused, it's not fair to the child. So I would like to make a motion to this district to do away with the 2-hour delay and just give the superintendent the option of a 1 hour or close the school for safety reasons. Because I don't think another hour is going to make any difference about cleaning up the area. That's
Okay.
just
Thank
my
you,
opinion.
Mr. Palmieri. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Angiozzi. Discussion? Mr. Iannetta?
Mr. Chairman. I would just like to hear from Superintendent Morisseau, her comments in response to Mr. Palmieri's recommendation.
So I would have to say that the 2-hour delay we try to use as a last resort. So I think it's important to know that It's certainly not the first option we go to. So when there's a question about whether or not we are going to be able to safely open the schools within an hour, there's a lot of consultation, a lot of communication that starts early in the morning with the director of facilities, who is also in touch with DPW. There's conversation with our communications director, who has the latest weather reports, and then our bus company. So it's sort of a complex communication process, usually around 4 o'clock in the morning. So I really try to take a lot of guidance from all of those people. There are times when our director of facilities might say we're in really good shape, the schools are looking good, the custodians, have been here all night, or we're prepared, the sidewalks are ready to go. And then the next phone call is to the bus company, and the bus company might say, we're going to have a really difficult time cleaning all of the snow off with just an hour delay. So then I'm forced to make a decision. So while I do certainly understand Mr. Palmieri's concerns around the 2-hour delay, it's not, it's not a full day of education for our students. It's an option that the commissioner gave to us. It gives me a little more latitude in making those decisions. My concern would be that in erring on the side of caution, I fear that additional snow days would become part of our calendar. However, I understand the other side of that is that, with a 2-hour delay by the time students do get into the schools and we get settled, it's cut into the instructional time significantly. So, again, it's not my go-to decision that I make. If we can do a 1-hour delay, I certainly would prefer that, and I certainly would prefer that over canceling school for the full day. So,
let's see, discussion.
I also have a question after Mr. De Silva.
Sorry.
I'll defer.
I was just wondering if we had any data on the absenteeism from a 1-hour delay versus a 2-hour delay, because I'm of the belief that if there's a 2-hour delay, chances are more of the children aren't even attending school after. And I was just wondering, if there is any correlation between a 1-hour and a 2-hour, a higher absenteeism being with the 2-hour delay, if that's another reason why not to have the 2-hour delay.
That's actually an excellent question. I don't have that data right here in front of me, but I can certainly get it tomorrow, and that doesn't help right now. But, I think that what you are stating is probably accurate. I can't, definitively and statistically say that that's accurate, but, parents probably would tend to not send their, well, it's only a half day, it could be what they're thinking, so.
Steve, you all set? Okay, Gina?
I don't think, the decision is never easy. Cancel school, hour delay. I think what we always remember is it's student safety. So I know that even in the last snowstorm, and it's one of those things no one's ever happy with the decision, but I know I had the conversation with the superintendent late at night and early in the morning the following day. The issue with the last snowstorm was that the snow ended late with the last snowflake, I think around 10 o'clock. The town ordinance says you have 24 hours to shovel your sidewalk. We have 3 schools on Middle Spring Avenue, and then what we have to consider is our high school students are getting to school for 7:30. Are we willing to take the risk for a delay if people don't shovel their sidewalks to allow these children headed to bus stops that are snow covered to walk in Middle Spring Avenue? I'm not willing to take that risk, so I'll take the heat when people say I can't believe they canceled, because I'd rather have every student safe at home than have one student hit by a car. Saying that, I know, like I said, it's the court of public opinion. I think Mr. Palmieri is right. For 7 years, we were unable to use a 2-hour delay, and we managed. So I don't think it's a lot to ask. I think oftentimes our committee has been very consistent with safeguarding instructional time. We make sure we're thinking through what surveys we're going to give, how this is going to look. So if we're thoughtful, if the hour delay helps our staff and students get to school safely, if there's a question, err on the side of caution. I always think that if for some reason we have a need to think about the 2-hour delay again, we can bring it back up, but I'm fine with moving to a 1-hour delay or a cancellation.
Thank you very much. I'm curious about the number of absences.
That's a great question.
Yeah, really, and that was an excellent question that
It's a great question, but it still doesn't take the fact that the 2 hours, everybody's losing.
No, what I'm saying, Steve, is I think what I'm actually trying to say.
What I was trying to say is when a 2-hour delay happens, chances are the majority
High absentee.
high absenteeism. So
right.
you might as well just close the school.
Right. Okay. Any other comments, questions?
I'm not, yes, if I may.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
is there someone else? I'm sorry.
No.
All right, so I'm wondering if there's some other mitigating circumstances. As far as sidewalks, I've been on the Environmental Commission for a long time. If you look at plowing patterns of businesses, they dump them into the sidewalks. So even though it's a 24-hour, it's not enforced in this town. We've been to the council numerous times to ask them to do something. Nothing gets done in terms of the police enforcement. I think it's very low priority in this town. It's unfortunate. That's the way it is. It's not just for our students. It's also for elderly who on bus stops and things like that. I'm also wondering if the bus company who can't get the buses or the snow off their buses in time, I'm also wondering if those buses are too big to navigate some of the tight streets that we have, and sometimes with the snow plowing patterns, which get on those corners, and again, that's a danger. Having just recently taught school in 2-hour delays, I can tell you that absenteeism is higher because
I'm not surprised.
Some of the
at that.
children do not come in on a half, and then you walk in, and you're ready for lunch in 20 minutes. So it is unfortunate. I don't know if I want to take the tool away if I don't have all the answers. The answers would be the availability of the buses. Can they navigate our streets? And is the cleaning of the schools a priority before the streets and everything else? So if we don't get them until 9 o'clock or 9:30, I got it. But if we're on it all day long, and I know it's a merged maintenance piece with DPW and all that, so I don't know when they're in the schools. I do know that the last time there was significant snowstorm, I was pretty much going to predict that there was going to be at least a 2-hour delay, or no school or whatever, because a couple of the schools had not been touched, and that was 6, 7 o'clock, and I had to take one of the young ladies who works at my mother's facility home. So I went by Maryville, I went by Wayland. Neither school was touched. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just thinking that maybe if the schools aren't getting done more quickly, then that adds to the scramble to get them inside of an hour delay.
I know Mr. Ferroli's here, but I do believe that the streets have to be done first, because if not, then they're dumping back into the school or the sidewalks that's already done. So they have to do the streets and then do the schools to ensure they're not messing up.
I was just wondering if we had separate vendors.
I was
doing
just
the
curious
schools.
if you know.
Our schools are done by a private vendor. Nothing to do with the streets, town roads. As the storm progresses, we come in. We were here. We did all the schools 3 times the last storm. We got 15 inches of snow. They were here as soon as it got 3 or 4 inches. They came in. DPW has nothing to do with plowing the snows in the schools. They just sand the
Right, so that, yeah.
Do you have to
I
wait
thought
for
that.
any, are there certain schools we have to wait for the streets to get done because of the way it dumps
No.
into the plow?
No.
We don't have that issue. Good.
No, because I don't think you're allowed to put snow on the streets anyway.
No, definitely not.
Any further comment or questions on the motion? Anyone else? Okay. Sure. Good point, Bob. Thank you. Okay, ready to vote. Rod?
Oh, we're doing a roll call vote? Is that what we're doing? I'll vote aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 7-0. I guess we're going to go to 1 hour delays now.
Or cancellation.
Or cancellation, right. All right.
Assuming that part of that motion is we're making every available effort to clean and get the buses and all the other things we have to do. We're not just frivoling away a day of school and making it up later.
I think that's a correct assumption.
Good.
I want to thank the committee, and I just hope the rest of the districts in our state look at this, because
Well, should we send out a resolution saying we've done it and the reasons why?
that'd be a great idea, because the last 2 or 3 storms, and I know one of them was really big, but 90% of the schools that had a 2-hour delay were done the day before. So I just think it's an abused system right now, and I think it's really glad that we put a stop to it and worried about the education of the kids.
Thank you very much. Next item.
School committee report?
Nothing? No.
Okay, so use of property. Be it resolved that at the recommendation of the superintendent, the North Providence School Committee consider and vote to approve the use of property requests as submitted.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Picard, seconded by
Mr. De Silva.
Mr. De Silva. Thank you very much. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, so voted. Thank you.
Be it resolved that at the recommendation of the superintendent, the North Providence School Committee consider and vote to approve the list of bills as submitted.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Picard, seconded by
Mr. De Silva.
Mr. De Silva. He's very active tonight. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, so voted. No, Gina does it.
That's my job. That's okay. I would like to, pass the motion to approve and seal the executive session minutes pursuant and applicable to provisions of Rhode Island General Law 42-46-4 and 5 for February 28th.
Second. Mr. De
Motion
Silva.
by
Mrs. Picard made the motion. Mr.
Picard
De
made the
Silva
motion, seconded by Mr. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, ayes have it, so voted. Next
And
item.
a motion to approve the general session minutes of February 28th, 2018.
Motion by Ms. Picard, seconded by
Second.
Mr. De Silva. Discussion. All those in favor?
Motion to adjourn.
Well, we can't adjourn. No, we got some business.
Yeah, we're not
Budget.
done yet.
We're gonna go right into the budget. Yeah, discussion. Before we do that, the matter pertaining to the school calendar will be discussed next week.
We're tabling that tonight.
Right.
So the next portion of the school committee meeting will be a discussion of the 2018-19 budget.
Bad. Was that?
We're gonna wait for them to come back, no? Let's start. Well, you're up.
Hello, we're waiting. Who else is, well, Donald's not coming back.
Paul Mary.
Okay. Who else? Well, Donald's gone.
No, he's gone.
He's gone.
Mr. Ionetta. You can start.
Yeah, Ronnie's coming back. Mr. McNamee.
Okay.
I think we're all set.
This is the FY 2019 budget workshop, and we're going to start off with the district initiatives, which Superintendent Morrisseau will go through.
Thank you, Mr. McNamee. So this is just a brief bulleted list of some of our district initiatives that are reflected in the budget. We are looking at the expansion of personalized learning and supports at the elementary level. We are also looking at the introduction of system-wide social, emotional, and behavioral supports programs and certified personnel. So in terms of bringing students back from out of district as well as supporting our students who are in district. Mr. Jones has been working very closely with his team and with us, those of us at the central office, to lead the way with creating new programs. So you'll see that reflected in the budget as well. Our CTE programs at the high school, we have moved forward with CTE approval for our Marine Tech program, and then looking at what our additional and next pathways will be at North Providence High. We're always looking at increasing our enrollment in the P-Tech program and expanding that program. Certainly everything that has to do with facilities, construction, upgrades to existing schools, and our health and safety upgrades, you will see that reflected. We're talking right now about the distribution of teacher leadership opportunities in the area of technology and technology integration. So up until this point, we have had really one person leading that way, and it's a big job, but we're also in a very different place than we were 3 years ago, and we have very skilled educators throughout our district who are capable of leading the way and leading their colleagues. So we're looking at possibly adjusting that model of support for our teachers. Let's see, the professional development that will continue also in preparation for our new innovative learning spaces. We'll have to provide professional development to support our teachers in working in those newly designed spaces. Always technology integration. Certainly, Mr. Jones is always looking at ways he can support all teachers and teacher assistants in expanding our inclusionary practices, co-teaching practices. And ELA, science and mathematics continue to be a focus of professional development. We are looking to acquire more updated resources in science, mathematics, and ELA. I said acquire or develop because some of the best resources are often developed by our own teachers, so it's not necessarily a matter of purchasing new items. Sometimes it's a matter of giving teachers time to work together to develop those resources. And finally, securing grant funds to continue to support our marine trades, P-Tech, MTSS, and personalized learning.
Okay. I'll take questions ongoing, whatever you like. Is it relative to those initiatives?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So the conversation around facilities, of course, the schools are not new, especially I have lots of families at Wayland who are concerned about the grounds, the asphalt. I know they repaved the bus yard, but there's lots of areas where they say that, the students are falling, adults are falling. Is that part of the plan to make sure that we're working on that? So I would like to be clear with the Wayland families that that's incorporated in this work. I know it's cold right now, we're not doing it tomorrow, but I just want to make sure.
Do you want me to answer, John? Absolutely. We're looking at both the outside of our facilities and the inside of our facilities, and really taking stock of what exactly needs to be done to not only have them just in safe conditions, but to upgrade the facilities, whatever retrofitting or renovations and upgrades need to take place. So absolutely.
Okay, just to give everyone an overview on the budget. Right now, we're looking at increasing our appropriation from the town by $868,913. Our state aid this year increased by $1,623,982. Fortunately, we had a very good increase in our residential average daily membership, which allowed us to move from the original budget of about $535,000 to $1,623,000. Otherwise, we would have been short another $1 million in this budget.
Can I ask a question?
Excuse me?
Can I ask a question about the enrollment?
Yep. Yep.
So we get the weekly enrollment, and I see a number of 3,800. Where does 3596 come from?
3596 is the average daily membership, residential average daily membership as computed by RIDE. These are the statistics that we send in, which the formula is based on. So let's say a student comes in, is in September and October, and then they leave. That proportionate amount of time that that student was in counts towards this residential average daily membership.
So last April, they sent us the same average daily membership.
Well, that's different than the one that they do. That's a snapshot in time, the one that they give on a weekly basis.
So in April of last year, and I can look it up, there was a projection as to how many children were going to be in the school system, and it was a reduction from the 3476, and it wasn't an increase. It was a deduction, and I will pull it up on my emails if you would like me to. It was a reduction of 100 children. So my question to you is, I'm a believer in the fact that with all this construction that's happening in the town, that we in fact are being inundated with children, and these numbers are becoming more and more skewed up versus down. So why are we, I guess the question is, why are we asking RIDE to give us projections when we know what's going on in our own town? That's kind of like what I don't get.
Well, RIDE's not doing the projections. RIDE's taking this information and putting it in its funding formula so they can determine the amount of funding based on the formula that's in place. So this residential average daily membership is the formula, or is part of the calculation of the formula that we need to keep track of. So that is going to be probably a little bit higher than what we're seeing in terms of our residential students. But for example, again, if a student comes in let's say March, they're probably not counted in this total because you're doing it as of that point in time. So when they gave us a projection, for example, for FY19, which was the $535,000 increase on a formula for state aid, they were using March of 2017 numbers. So initially, we were only looking at a $535,000 increase. So now, when we submitted these numbers last week, we showed an increase of about 120 students, or basically residential average daily membership. So we could say students of which was an increase of 120. That equated to almost $1,080,000 of additional state aid based on the formula, because that formula is not only driven by reimbursement factors in terms of income in the community, but it's also driven by the enrollment in the community as well.
Excellent. So we were able to capture more money because, in fact, our numbers were a lot higher than what they anticipated them to be.
Right.
Which I believe they're going to be even higher and higher as time goes by.
I think with the new schools, you're going to wind up, I think, seeing some increases as well, too.
Correct. Okay. So we stay on top of this to make sure that we're getting funded properly from the state.
Absolutely. And if you look in your packet, I believe I've included a copy of the formula, but I've also included my calculation as well of the additional amounts that we're getting on page 15 in your packets. You can see the first, excuse me? The first column says per ride, so you can see in that middle of that column there, the increase in state aid of 535. Now with the additional data, and again, that was based on 3,447 of average daily membership in 2017, going up to 3,596. So you've got 1,623,000 as the increase. It's roughly $9,422 per student is what we get reimbursed for, and on the free and reduced, we're getting reimbursed at $3,769. So any child that's free and reduced, we get a bonus of $3,769. That's why we try to capture that free and reduced, and we're pretty particular about going after that those numbers. So we're reconciling to a number of different systems to make sure that we're getting the maximum amount on that.
Is the free and reduced based on applications or actually approved?
Well, they have to be based on approved, but I mean, you'll get direct certs from the state, but
we're pushing the applications out.
But we're also looking at those siblings that may not apply.
Right.
If a sibling is approved, then we usually will count the the other siblings.
And do these numbers include the charter schools and Davies and those places?
No, I've got some of those.
Okay, that's just coming to our schools every day. Okay.
Right. So on the free and reduced, as I indicated, we also saw an increase in terms of the overall free and reduced from 1551 to 1572. So overall, we're looking at total expenditures in this budget of $58,044,515, which is an increase of 4.56%, over $2.5 million increase in overall expenditures. And as with most of the expenditures for most school districts, if you look at salaries, fringes, and then you include your transportation, your out-of-district tuitions, your total percentage is close to 90% of your overall budget. On the appropriations, in 2016, we were level funded. Again, this doesn't include any of the deficits that were funded by the town, because again, they're not going, what's that? They're not ongoing, so they're not included in the ongoing appropriation, so they're one-time contributions that the town does make. So if you look at 2016, we were level funded. In 2017, we got $200,000 in additional appropriation. In 2018, we went in with a level funded budget. This year, we're going to do a request of $868,000, which is a 2.67%. As you know, under state law, we can't go more than 4% of the prior year. So we're under that, but certainly this is not a budget that we've yet to review with the mayor at this point in time. We're looking at salaries of state aid to education. If you look at this number, which is kind of interesting, because we have, this shows 8 years. The first 7 years from 2012 to 2018 were the years under the funding formula where we received additional revenue. Those districts that were receiving less revenue under the funding formula get penalized over a 10-year period as a reduction. So if you look at the 7 years, we got an additional $10,227,887 more in state aid. That, back in 2012, state aid was about 28.5% of the total of our state aid and our appropriation. Now state aid represents over 40% of that number.
However, some of that number's encumbered in terms of what we pay to Davies and charter schools.
Absolutely.
So when they put the funding formula in,
right,
they also said, okay, Davies now charges you, well, before no one did.
Back in 2012, we weren't paying for charter school tuitions. We weren't paying for career and technical tuitions.
Right. So the
We weren't
funding
paying for any
formula
of
had
the
a
state
double-edged
schools.
sword. Yeah.
Right. And that probably is close to $1.5 million
all day. Yeah.
This year, in this year's budget.
And it's based on per pupil expenditures, which you know I've preached about 1,000 times because it's nothing more than a division algorithm, and it's not a true reflection of what we spend on children.
So the increases again for the 7+ years was $10,227,000. The same period of time on appropriations, we received an additional $2,088,000. So you can see that obviously the state aid was outpacing any of the amounts that we were receiving from the town in appropriations. This is the FTE schedules. You can see on the teacher side, the superintendent had talked about some increases in resource teachers and ELL teachers, which shows the increase. We're looking to, as a small reduction in teacher assistants. So a net number, we're looking at an increase of about 2 FTEs in this budget.
Is there an increase in the special ed budget? Because do you expect more kids coming back? Because you look like you're reducing teacher assistants.
Well, we're looking at a change in the delivery of services under special ed. Yeah. What's that? Well, we're talking about, and certainly Chris can speak to that, but we're looking at trying to reduce the amount of behavioral specialists that we're outsourcing at this point in time and trying to bring those in-house. And with the additional ABAs, there may be some potential for us to also bring in some kids that are out of district. There are certain kids that certainly are medically fragile that we'll never be able to bring in-house. We understand that. But there's a group there that, with the right programs in place, Chris and his team thinks that we can bring some of those kids back in, and that can be a substantial savings in terms of tuition, transportation. Some of these kids may even need one-on-one assistance. We can probably be able to provide that at a more efficient or economical way in district. So those are some of the things that we're looking at now and trying to reduce those overall special ed expenditures. I don't know if you want to say anything else on that, Chris.
I'm just curious, if you bring people back and you need more teacher assistance and you need more support, is your budget going to be able to withstand that if you, like, you know what I'm saying? Are we going to take this money that you're saving on busing and everything, and they're going to give you an additional money for that, or is that going to be a problem when somebody, we need another 2 teacher assistants, or we need another counselor, or another psychologist? Is that factored in that this could happen, or are you bare minimum? Okay.
Oh, will be, yeah. Yeah, we've reduced the consultants that are being used for ABAs right now as a result of the changes that we'll be making. The salaries, which is certainly the biggest budget item, we have almost $1,865,000 increase, almost 6.33. That's made up of, as you know, we're in the 3rd year of our teacher contract. There was a 2% increase. Steps in those contracts will be about $447,000. We have the increase in the teachers, resource teachers, and ELL. That's at a cost of about $425,000. We had a P-Tech position that was funded with the grant last year that we have to support in the general fund. That's about $95,000. We added a maintenance supervisor in the budget for $58,000. And so that comes to about $1,516,000. The other increases, $347,000 would be coming from other increases in the subline item, 1033 increases, custodial increases, principals, and administration. On the fringe benefits side, we're looking at an increase of about $437,000, about 3.46%. Most of that is going to be pension and payroll taxes associated with increased personnel. Our health care costs right now seem to be holding, so we're looking at we're in pretty good shape at this point in the FY19 budget on health care costs. The teacher's pension has gone up only slightly from 13.14 to 13.45%. Excuse me, 13.24 to 13.45%. Again, we discussed this, the payroll, FTE increases, and again, on the fringe benefits, the pension costs. We're looking at a small increase in medical, 4.2. No, the increase, yeah. I used the wrong word there, Mark. I'll attribute that to the medication that I'm taking now. That's my story. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I understand hip removals.
It's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Either the numbers are wrong or...
Keep going to the well with that, John.
I know, I got a few more months though, Steve.
Oh, I looked that off. You can play with it. That's a Malazzo. You just keep doing it.
There's another one here that'll come up too, and you'll catch too. So on the transportation, this one's been kind of a nightmare, but we've got, one of the things that have come up is on the routes. Once the routes exceed 4 hours in a given day, there's some excess hours that are being charged. So we're including an extra $250,000 in there on these routes. So Bridget was indicating that we're going to talk with the busing company to see if we can start to streamline these. Some of these are going to be caused by the swing spaces because it just takes more time to get out to Caliph. So we're anticipating that next year, obviously, some of that would go away, but we're also going to see what they can do with their transportation software to see what we can do to reduce that. And of course, when you're talking about K through 5 transportation, you have to have monitors on the bus as well, too. So it's going to cost you a little bit more on a daily basis when you're going over that 4-hour minimum on the bus routes.
Couple of questions.
Yep.
The 94.7 is district-wide for extracurricular and athletics. That's not at one particular place. That's district. These are district-wide numbers.
Yeah,
So
that
that seems low.
That's high school athletics.
Middle school athletics.
Middle school athletics and extracurriculum. Some of the extracurricular are
seems
funded with grants.
Okay, all right.
And
as
some
long as-
Feinstein money
Okay,
sometimes.
that's
and-
cool. So as long as we're talking about the transportation issue, where are we standing in terms of, that bus company's been a challenge. Are we looking at any monetary recompense for past sins? I don't know how else to put it.
Well, I'll turn that one over to the superintendent, who's our bus
know.
expert.
Sorry. Yeah.
So we've, the bus expert, thank you. Right, we, actually, the CEO from the company flew in again this week, met with us. We are in a much better position than we were. We've been running reports on time arrivals, departures, so on and so forth. They've been extremely responsive. So I have more confidence in the company now, certainly. So I talked a little bit with them because some of the complaints or concerns that are brought to me, I've had parents say, how can you be running a bus? How can it be cost efficient running a bus for, high school students that is only half full? And so the explanation was, well, they determine the number of buses that are needed for our district, obviously based upon the elementary numbers and how many are needed at the elementary level. So in order to keep the bus runs, total bus runs, below that 4-hour threshold where you would have to pay additional funds to the monitors and whatnot, they run more frequent runs with fewer students because we're paying for the buses anyways. So a lot of those questions that have come up by parents, community members, us, they've been able to answer very well. Now, you had asked about, are we looking at getting any monetary sort of...
Yeah, recompense in some
yes,
sort, or...
exactly.
Or is there a summer program going to be put in place to look at this whole town once again on their end to beef it up, and
Yes.
which they should have done last year?
So we're going to be working closely with both the regional manager, Steve Schmuck, who is, he's been here before you. As a matter of fact, he asked to come before the committee again at the April meeting to check in with the committee and see how are things going. So we'll be working with Steve throughout the summer to make sure that we're looking at the routes. We're also, John had mentioned, right now, the students who are eligible to ride buses are counted in our bus numbers. So we know that there are some that don't ride.
Well, yeah, the issue with that is your high school. As soon as the kid turns 16, father gives them a car,
Right.
whatever. I mean, they're
Exactly.
eligible to ride the bus. A lot of them don't.
Right.
We also have the issues with the swing spaces, so we offered every student buses who may not be using
And many,
it.
right.
So I had asked the folks from Durham last night, do you have examples from other districts where they receive confirmation or something from the parents saying, yes, my student will be taking advantage of the opportunity to ride the bus, or no, my child will not be riding the bus at all, to give us more accurate numbers as to what is our average rider membership each day. So that will be something that we'll be working on this spring and early part of the summer so that we can get that information.
That sounds great. You said the monetary recompense is still being discussed, and
So,
work in progress. Perfect. Okay.
One of the things that we have been able to reduce on the bus side is the out-of-district special education busing. That has come down. When I first got here, we were up in the million range. Of course, we're kind of controlling the number of kids that are going out of district and monitoring those. And some of those children are being taken to school by parents. So, and we're also on top of the numbers with the state because we're following those on a monthly basis. So we've been able to kind of control that cost a little bit too.
And the state is not Durham. That's, I think, first student.
State is first student in Ocean State, but we use first student.
Okay.
on those.
And
Oops.
that also would include the private schools in terms of Catholic schools. And I don't know how many we go to. Are we still going to East Bay, Bayview, and
Well,
that?
we got reimbursed from RIDE for most of that right now.
All right, good.
Yeah. In the charter schools, in the Voc Tech, they pay for their busing, so it's a wash. This is your favorite slide, Rod?
It's funny because, you're talking almost $5 million.
So, in the big packet on the budget, you'll see the detail in terms of the comparison, but I think we're looking for an additional 13 students at Achievement First, and that Mayoral Academy, and RIDE gives us those projections. So we're looking at 169 students, 170 students.
Based on per pupil expenditure.
Right.
Which is a false number.
Which is $1,501,000, $1,504,000.
You should. It's listen, it's a false number. I mean, our total budget is our per pupil expenditure. What's our total everything together, John? Yeah, if you add it all up, right? Divided by number of kids per pupil expenditure.
Right now, if we've got about 58 million here, we probably have another 2 million in our CRP program, maybe a little bit over 2 million. And then we have our food services probably in the neighborhood of $1.1 million, $1.2 million. So you add another 3.3 million onto it, so.
Food services is part of our per
61
pupil
million.
expenditure number? Total budget?
No, they don't include that in there.
I didn't think so, okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. If the state is reducing ours, is the town giving us this extra money?
Well, well, I was reading the Breeze today where the mayor indicated there would be no tax increase. So that's why I thought maybe you could go up and talk to the mayor about seeing if he could give us the extra $868,000. Because I don't know what he's going to say to Bridget and I when we go to see him. But what happens is if he puts his budget, he puts it to the town council. If we're not in there, the town council is not going to add any number in there. So I don't know what he's got in mind on his budget.
When I first came here 11 years ago, the budget was 39 million. It's 62. It's crazy. Like, where is it going to be in 10 years? 100 million for the school department? I don't.
Funding formula double.
Well, it's not. It's. I know, but we're still getting that money from the state. We're losing it.
Definitely underfunded. Yeah. But
being underfunded, we could not do the things we're doing now, which is build new schools, address our buildings, address the programs, and it was a Band-Aid approach, and that doesn't work.
I mean, he's got to add probably $1.7 million to his budget to cover the debt service on this bond, because there's no reimbursement yet for this year. So depending on when we go out for the bond, we're thinking we'll go out in the fourth quarter, maybe early 2019 for the bond. So you had a pretty good surplus last year, as did we. We were up over 900,000. This year, not so much. We're probably going to be somewhere in that, at the end of the day, hopefully maybe close to the $600,000 deficit. But we've got enough accumulated to cover that, so we don't have to have a deficit reduction plan put in place. But they've already put together the rainy day fund, so yeah. So I think it's time that we get what we need to get to, to run the district, although he doesn't see it that way. So I think it's going to be a tough one to sell to him. I don't know. I don't have an idea what he's got in his budget, and I know he's obviously going to be saving some money on the senior center. But I don't know what else he's going to, what he's going to put in his budget. So that's why we need to get to him before he puts his numbers together.
When is our budget due? April 1st?
Yeah.
We having another hearing after this?
What's that?
Are we supposed to have another hearing? We're supposed to have 2, but I thought we were.
Well, yeah, we were probably supposed to have 2, but because of my
Oh, no, I totally understand.
My
HIPAA.
unfortunate situation,
You're HIPAA, so
I have to claim that again.
well, maybe we could have one on that date we set to look at the other thing. The groundbreaking ceremony? No, are we meeting on a hearing or something? We could have a quick budget hearing before that. Ah, right. Sorry.
But he doesn't have his complete yet either. But
yeah, we've had waivers on that before.
Yeah, all right, exactly. But I think we need to get to him with a number now, because he gets it into his head. He's got a number, and then we don't get anything, or we get something that he's got in his mind that is not going to fund us the way we want to fund it. So I'd rather get an idea of what he's looking at. And even if you think that we might be on the high side on the 8, we can always cut it back. We're not going to be in a position where we probably could increase it, but we could always cut it back.
It's funny that we're talking about this and we have the slide up there of the charter schools, of which, there it is.
So on some of these, on some of the utilities, we had we just entered into a 3-year gas agreement, which almost cut the cost of energy in half. So we've got a pretty good deal there. We went in with the town on the electric, so we saw a little bit of a reduction in the electric. So that's a 3-year agreement. All the other utilities seem to be holding pretty much to where we were in the past. Swing spaces, some of these expenses obviously are going to go away in next year's budget, the FY20. This year we did spend probably a little bit more in maintenance and on the buildings than we initially had budgeted, and certainly that's accounting for some of the deficit that we're going to have in FY18. On the proposed capital budget, we have, and again, we have a capital reserve fund that we can use for capital improvements. So right now, what we have being charged to the operating fund is the $481,000, which is mostly technology hardware. We do have some HVAC equipment that we're going to have to add to the schools. We've got some bathrooms that we have to do over at Greystone, and this is just some furniture and fixtures that some of the schools have requested, but we're going to be looking at that more broadly in the building program in terms of doing some furniture and fixture improvements at the elementary schools, other than just the 2 new elementary schools. But that'll probably be coming out of capital reserve funds. What's that? No, we get housing aid money on a regular basis in there, so we've, yeah, I mean, but what we do is we leverage that, so if we get a 60% reimbursement, we have that money coming back in, so we kind of use.
Just one more quick question. The Kids Club Fund, are we in control of that, or does the town still have it?
For some reason, I can't find out why, the ordinance committee hasn't voted.
They still have it?
They still have it.
Stuff goes to the town?
No, we're in charge of it, but the towns, in other words, it was supposed to be held for capital improvements of elementary schools.
Right,
So
so-
I didn't know if,
So Anthony had signed a letter, sent it to the ordinance committee indicating that we'd like to basically revoke that ordinance and have that money come to us.
yeah, I remember saying that, but I want to make sure that it stays with the elementary schools. That was what it was designed for. I don't want to use that to other things.
That's what it's supposed to be for.
Right. I'm just saying, I don't want it to funnel into some other area, you know, how things happen to like divert around. That was a specific thing for a specific reason.
911 money. Yup.
Oh, I'm just saying, I just want to make sure that stays for the, you know, whatever we have to do.
The only thing I wanted to do is get it out of the, I mean, we'd sent over to the town. It's not a big deal. I just have to request the money from the town, but it'd be easier if when money comes into us anyway, and then we have to send it to the town, then we have to request it. So that's the reason.
Well, that was the reason when I proposed that, because it was not being used where it was supposed to be being used. So we wanted to make sure it was held in escrow for that.
That was also at a time when the.
Oh, no, I wasn't you. You
tough
were in here.
No, but it was tough financial times at that point in time.
Yeah.
That was in 2010, 2011
Right.
that ordinance went in, so. Yeah. So that's all I got. That's all I got.
I had a kid do that in school to me once. I said, "Are you done with your first name?"
Good. Thank you, John. Very good job.
You're brutal tonight.
She didn't like the April 9th date. Doesn't like the presentation.
Uh-huh.
Good thing you're 65.
Well,
Any further questions?
Thank you
Ryan?
for all your hard work, John.
Thank you.
Budget.
yeah, now
Especially, I know you coming back from an illness and everything.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Awesome. Oh, yeah.
Okay, if there's no further questions, we need a motion to adjourn. Motion by
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Palmieri, seconded by Mr. Andriozzi. Okay, all set at 9:35.
doesn't really make any difference, because whatever the mayor gives us is gonna be our budget. Yeah. I think we're gonna meet next week sometime. Gonna meet again next week sometime?
Yeah, we have that special meeting. Pass it then.
When's that special meeting?
That hearing, can we just get the budget passed April next Wednesday?